So a brand new Marvel game is on the cards by the same exact guys behind Injustice 3 and Mortal Kombat. Now stick around to the end of this video to find out what characters could potentially be on the list for this game. Why? Because it also may well just be something we've been waiting for such a long time, and that is finally a DC versus Marvel game. I know it sounds like pure insanity, but it all lines up, and that's what we're going to be talking about and showcasing in this video. But one thing we do know for sure is, even if worst case scenario it wasn't a DC versus Marvel game, that it's definitely without a doubt about to be a Marvel fighting game. But that said, how hyped would you be if a DC vs Marvel game is finally about to be a thing? Let me know what your reaction would be in the comment section below. So the leaks are out, and so are the teasers by Ed Boon, who, if you don't know, is the co-creator of Mortal Kombat and Injustice. Now last year he did actually do some teasers on how Marvel characters such as Spider-Man 4, etc., kind of like quoting them almost, right, as you'll see on screen, but they basically clearly have little to no context behind it. Now, this is where it gets super interesting now, because as of yesterday, he quote tweeted a post from the director James Gunn that celebrated the recent announcement of the release date for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, in his tweet, Ed Boon commented on how impressive it was that James Gunn has managed to work on both a Marvel, being Guardians of the Galaxy, and DC, of course, being the Suicide Squad title. Now, a thinking face emoji, as you can see, was at the end of Ed's tweet, and this is where it all begins, because this is what has led to some speculations that perhaps the game developer is following James Gunn's footsteps in essentially managing both of these things, doing a crossover. Now, people usually hate these forms of teasers as they say it can mean nothing, and let's be honest, right? You're right. I mean, it would mean nothing if this tweet, for example, never had a thinking emoji at the end of it. Now, that for me is the golden key, as it's a clear indication of some type of teaser. I know it sounds crazy. I know people are saying, well, this just doesn't make any sense because it doesn't clearly have context behind it, and, you know, it's probably something we should overlook. But like I said, a single emoji can really go a long way, and let's be honest, these developers are not stupid, so that would also make sense, where they just know it's a clear teaser, it's going to get loads of people talking, especially considering that the teasers, like he said he'd done last year, were around June, so it's kind of almost like around that same time. I mean, it was a month from now technically, but point still stands where it's almost like a year to date where we're now getting some other type of teaser. Now, before you say this is impossible and it's extremely unlikely to happen, I get it, because for the last decade, and probably much longer, this is something that has felt like it's been impossible. But whichever path this leads to, one thing we know for sure is that it's going to have a Marvel roster. But at the same time, it would be incredibly more competitive if it was to have a DC roster too. Now, the reason why this would be so big is because it basically feeds people's myths, right, that they've had for God knows how long on how would it be if, or should I probably say, what if X character in X universe was to go against Y character in Y universe, were to go ahead, who would basically win, i.e. Thor vs Batman, Spider-Man vs Joker, etc, etc. Probably not the best of examples, but you get what I mean. The point still stands, right? It's about feeding into people's theories and imagination on what if. Now, the biggest challenge a game like this could face would be its story, if one was included. Now, both companies would also likely prefer to see their characters get the better treatment, and finding a balance would definitely be difficult, because if any game developer is up to the challenge, it's going to be great. However, it's likely the minds of the people behind Mortal Kombat, right, or Injustice. It's likely going to be the guys behind Mortal Kombat, because it's just a game that absolutely nails that specific, I guess, scene, right? Now, this is where we kind of find the problem even further, because we talk about a DC and a Marvel crossover. Sure, it's happened in some sort of format in the past in other video games, but it's never been like this, which is basically what every single person wants. It's never ever even been teased to be something like this, and the biggest reason is the fact that, I mean, literally it's Warner Brothers and then Disney, right, and then it's Marvel and it's all these companies that are just basically not going to want to see one character get, or I guess you could say one universe get better treatment than the other, because don't forget, this is what feeds for speculation. This is what essentially feeds people's imagination as well. It could be very, very big if done correctly, but where do you find the balance in between that? Like, at what stage do you say, okay, this crossover is actually mutually beneficial to both ends, right, when it comes down to the superheroes? So when we talk about like a modern day society superhero and the whole scene in general, that's literally solely the biggest problem in my opinion. Now, I do think, like I said, it's for sure, without a single doubt, a Marvel fighting game. And, I mean, look, it's not like this would be the first one we've ever had, but I mean, it would just be absolutely incredible if we had that just flat out Marvel fighting game where they're going against each other. I mean, that would definitely be huge. Either way, a DC vs Marvel game, great, that would be everything. But a Marvel fighting game, I mean, come on, that's option 2. It's plan B, and it would not be a bad plan B whatsoever. So, what characters could be on the roster if it is indeed a Marvel fighting game, and which characters are likely to come at launch versus a DLC as well? That's something that is mega important to take into consideration. So, I strongly believe the characters such as Cap, Iron Man, Thor, Groot, Spider-Man, Black Widow, Hulk, basically the usual faces, okay, will come as a base standard. However, I think when it comes down to like verse battles such as Black Panther versus, let's just say, Killmonger for instance, could indeed have its own miniature story and could well be a paid DLC. Although I feel like it would probably not be fitting, is probably the best word to describe that as a DLC, it sure is something that fans would absolutely be gearing up to try out, and it's a no-brainer. I can see that definitely being such a big thing. Now, Thanos, we know, of course, would also absolutely be something in high demand, and I genuinely believe that was a character that would just come as a baseline standard. But what do you guys think on this in the comment section below? What would be the Marvel roster, my ideal roster, of when it comes down to the launch characters that are a must for me without any paid DLC other than, I guess, well, I mean, there would be paid DLC characters, but you get what I mean, like ones that I would not like to pay for and that I would like to see just when I'm able to load up the game and get into the action, would be without a single doubt Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Thor, alongside Doctor Strange probably. Those would be my 4, but let me know your ones in the comment section below. And that's going to wrap up this video here. So leave all your thoughts about the leaks. Is it going to be a thing? Is it not? Are you excited if it's just a Marvel fighting game? Let me know below. But guys, I'll see you in the next one. Till then, have yourselves a ridiculously amazing day. And until the next one, adios amigos.